All set to go? Perfect. Why don't we start a little bit early? Welcome to the November 1st, 2018 Sherborn Select Board hearing. We're going to actually start a minute early. The Town Administrator, David, would you read the proposed agenda?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. First, we'll amend or approve the agenda, and then public comment, and then consideration of consent agenda with payroll warrant, consideration of one-day pouring license. Next meeting, 11/14/2018 and 11/15/18, and then minutes for September 6th and September 20th. Then appointment to Leland Farms Board of Trustees, Alicia Goody, 3 years, term to expire 6/15/21. Then consideration of signing local regulatory agreement regarding 59 North Main Street. And then consideration of memo of understanding regarding custody of trust funds between the Town of Sherborn and Library Board of Trustees. Then consideration of amendments to special act regarding removal of elected financial officer with Nancy Hess, Town Collector. Then consideration of special town meeting article requests and warrant. Then under routine business, town administrator reports, selectmen reports, and then adjourn to executive session, and the board may convene back into public session. Executive session citation is MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to threatened potential litigation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town, and the chair so declares. Library.
Terrific. Are there any proposed amendments to the agenda? Got a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Terrific. We have one public comment from our tax collector, Nancy Hess.
It's true. Well, today was all about taxes. Today was tax due date. And I just want to remind people that if all of a sudden you realize that you missed it, you have until midnight to pay online and still not incur any interest. So I would encourage anyone who's listening to do that. We've had a very good response, as usual. We have very civic-minded residents of Sherborn. We have collected all but a little over 500,000, which will come in the next, most of it will come in with the next couple of weeks. So I'm very proud of our taxpayers, and I don't mind saying so. So once again, if you haven't paid, pay online, and you'll be one of the goodies.
Thanks, Nancy. Terrific. The consent agenda is the payroll warrant, a one-day pouring liquor license for bar mitzvah, and the schedule for the next couple of the select board hearings and approval of the minutes.
So can I pull out the one-day pouring license for separate consideration?
Certainly. Anything else that people want to consider separately
I didn't get any background material on this item. Was it handed out separately?
on the,
On any of the item number one, any of the consent agenda?
In the packet that was emailed to us.
Yeah, there's,
Email? Okay. I sent in my
They're
hard
also
copy.
under
doesn't have
tab
it.
1.
here, you're certainly welcome to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question as well about the setting up a policy for the details.
So we don't have to pull it out every single time.
Right.
I mean, should just be a set policy.
The insurance certificate is all in order, all the additional insureds are proper, and the coverage is
Town's name,
proper,
and the town's name is co-insured.
Yep.
Okay.
as well as the community center and the, in the church.
I've already looked at the minutes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, not including the one-day pouring license.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Terrific. Okay, the one-day pouring license is for a group of 70, if I recall correctly, it was 40 adults and 30 children, and the request was for security detail. I think we need to have a set policy, so I'd like to schedule for an upcoming meeting, a policy that, so that hopefully we can include this in the consent agenda. Paul, you had a comment on this?
Well, a couple of those. First, some years ago, I think before any of the three of you were on the board, we had a survey done of different cities and towns, and what the policies were of other cities and towns. And the gold standard is 100, above 100, police detail, below 100, no police detail. And so, ever since we had that discussion, we had those reports, they're in the file somewhere. My position has been that I will not support a police detail requirement that is different from the generally accepted standard. And I know in prior discussions, people had said, well, we don't want to second guess the police department on this. And I thought about that, and the reply to that is that the general laws say that that's our decision. It is not the police department's decision. The police department makes a recommendation, but at the end of the day, it's our decision. And having 30 to 40 adults, that was the estimate from the party sponsor, and 30 to 40 kids doesn't strike me as the kind of event that's going to require a police presence. And further, that seems like heavy-handed overkill. So I can't support those kinds of decisions on this particular bar mitzvah. I would also note that by imposing these costs on people using the Sherborn Community Center, it makes the Sherborn Community Center less competitive for business of this type, because people will go to places that don't have these kinds of expenses. So it harms the community center. It accomplishes not any real policy initiative, and we should be more in line with generally accepted standards. So for all those reasons, I'm going to vote no on that requirement.
Before we make a decision on this, I think I'd like to, I mean, I know he's not here, but why does the police chief require a detail for an event this size? Do you know, David?
It was about 2 years ago when we had some issues with the community center about this same thing. And we had the police chief in here, so we can bring him back in to discuss it, but it's not cut and dry as 100.
Okay.
It depends on the party, the time of day, what they're expecting to be drinking, whether it's open bar, or cash bar.
Because I would rather have a
Beer,
discussion
wine.
with the police chief rather than just, I mean, I know Paul thinks, I know it is our decision to make, but I mean, the reason we have a police chief that makes a recommendation is that we listen to him. And if he
correct.
feels that there's a need for a police detail, I'd like to hear and respect that.
I'd also, the first question is whether or not we've, in the past, the board has adopted a policy. I don't know if Dave or Diane, if you're aware.
No, there's never been a policy because we've relied on the police chief, and it's been kind of it's just they judge each event for what it is.
Could I respond to that? The police chief is not the one who's requiring it. It's Lieutenant Bento. He's the one that's been making these decisions. The chief hasn't been involved in the last year and a half, to my knowledge, or maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Always
I mean, the police department, whoever is the one that makes the decision there. I think we need to have a discussion with them, so we don't have to discuss this every time that we see a liquor license. I want to know what their policy is and why they're recommending it.
I can also see a rationale of having an absolute number of 100, and maybe for non-adults, the number's lower, maybe it's 50. But
Or as David said, it's a time of day thing, like this is a party from 6:30 to 10:30 at night where there's gonna be, whether there's 40 adults drinking alcohol or 100 adults drinking alcohol, that's a lot different than a 200-person party in the morning. I mean, it may not just be a numbers thing.
Well, if I recall the last discussion, this was a little bit punitive on the community center because there was an incident, I believe, that the town administrator just referred to where there was a 4th of July party, I believe it was, and after the party was over, a participant in the party went off to some location and fired off some fireworks, and because that happened, they attributed it to the community center and decided from then on that they were going to have a strict requirement for police details. That was, at the time we had that discussion a couple of years ago, that was already 3 years in the past. There has been no other incidents, I believe, in 5 years to trigger this kind of rigorous imposition. So I think, as I say, it's way overkill.
well, I'd like to schedule it, rather than discussing it every time we get one of these permits, I'd like to have a policy in place so that we can just handle it a little more efficiently, and I think it makes sense to have a policy. Suzie?
Yes, this is Tyler, Western Avenue. My understanding, the last time that I was here, and there was another one-day liquor license coming up involving the community center, the police chief was here, and it was clearly because, at this point, because of all the construction that's going on by the library, the limited parking over here, the tightness of the fencing and stuff, and because of that, and then also because of the town hall campus here, where the overflow would be, is one of the bigger reasons also for the police detail over there. Thank you.
Terrific. Do I have a motion to approve the liquor license?
I'll make a motion to approve it as, with including the police detail as it's presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor of that motion? All opposed? Passes on a 3-1 vote. Did anyone have any changes to the minutes? I did not.
We already approved those, because we did the consent agenda.
Yeah, we already voted that.
I'm sorry. Thanks, George. Okay, the next item is the appointment of Alicia Goody to the Leland Farms Board of Trustees.
So moved. Let's do it quick before she changes her mind. We've been looking a long time for a volunteer of her caliber to come forward.
Well, Alicia should be embarrassed by this wonderful letter from the Housing Partnership Committee endorsing her, so I would second that motion. All in favor? Terrific. Thank you, Alicia, for serving. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consideration of the local regulator agreement regarding 59 North Main Street. And unfortunately for you, Paul, I've got a bunch of questions about it. I've not reviewed one of these before, and there are some things, town council has approved it as to form and content, but
Let's put it off then. If you have questions.
There's no rush that it has to be done tonight.
I don't want to try and answer 4 times. I probably could answer all the questions because
Yep.
I've seen these many times, but I don't want to
well, let me
step
ask.
on his toes.
They're actually relatively minor. I had one question, which is the casualty paragraph does not impose an insurance obligation on the developer while the project's under construction. That strikes me as passing strange.
It's easy enough to include it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's defer this if there's no time pressure on it, and I'll pose the questions to town council about that.
This while you're posing questions, my question is that it's not coordinated with our bond counsel. Our bond counsel has said that Sherborn can't borrow money to use for affordable housing purposes, and this agreement gives us the opportunity to step in and purchase a number of affordable units in the marketing sequence. So it has the same flaw because the agreement is with the town of Sherborn. It has the same flaw that we can't, bond counsel won't let us use the remedies that are put into the agreement because we can't borrow the money. So we'd have to go, if we were going to do this agreement, we'd have to go to the advisory committee and ask them to set aside a kitty from free cash of like $500,000, sit that in a warrant article to have it available in case we have to exercise our rights under this agreement. Or we have to figure out some other structure that would allow us to make use of the agreement.
Would that other structure be I know we've been talking about setting up the housing trust, is that?
That could
would
be
that
one
a
remedy.
solution?
Yes. It's just that this is a standard form agreement, and while other communities haven't had a problem with borrowing money and stepping in and buying these units, we've been told we can't. The way the votes were done at town meeting and all of that stuff. So they don't want us to borrow the money, or we have to have a trust, or we have to have a nonprofit or something, some other vehicle other than the town of Sherborn.
Didn't we buy some of the units that we didn't want?
Yes, we did over the years, so, but they hadn't caught it. They didn't catch it. They hadn't changed their mind.
Maybe that's the other alternative. It's either to get permission or forgiveness of permission.
Can that be rectified by an article at the next town meeting?
It's if we establish, I think establishing a housing trust is something that
Right.
we could do at the next town meeting, which would then give us a vehicle to be able to purchase units,
Provided they have money,
provided they have, provided that.
or they had authority to borrow money.
Can there be a lease to purchase agreement? Because I think the town can enter a lease if it buys time to get to a town meeting or something like that.
Well, that's not provided for in this agreement that's before us, the town council drafted, but again, town council didn't really draft it. It's just sort of a standard boilerplate agreement that's fairly widely used.
I'm sure.
It's just that there was this oddity of bond council telling us that the money that we had previously appropriated for this purpose can't be used for this purpose. So we got to fix the appropriation, as Eric has suggested, or change the structure, as George has suggested, or change the agreement. But one way or the other, my reaction to the agreement is that it leaves, it's just not coordinated with bond counsel. It's good to have the right to step in and buy these units, but practically speaking, we're not going to be able to do it. We'll have to go to advisory and ask them to do a reserve fund transfer of $500,000 or whatever, and you're going to say, well, we don't have the money, or we don't want to use it for this purpose.
Well, I'll pose the questions I've got about the agreement to the lawyer at KP Law and ask him to coordinate with bond counsel, because that seems ill-advised to be drafting this and providing a remedy that we can't utilize. So, okay, any other comments or questions on this? We'll put this off. Then the next item on the agenda is a consideration of the memorandum of understanding regarding the custody of trust funds between the town of Sherborn and the Library Board of Trustees. I've circulated the most recent version with some very minor revisions. The agreement, Hank and Jim and I have been working with town council to finalize this. And there are 14 funds that would, under the memorandum of understanding, would be under the custody of the library treasurer. 2 funds where we're waiting for documentation of the donor's intent that the money be held by the library, and 4 basically legacy funds that would be under the custody of the town treasurer. The control of the funds by statute and how it's spent and how it's invested is controlled by the library trustees. And last time, I don't think you'd had a chance to review this, but I would recommend that, and will move that we enter into this memorandum of understanding with the library trustees.
Second.
Any comments?
Just a question.
Questions?
I always love to ask questions of the treasurer. Are you okay with this?
I'm fine with it, I just want to make sure David has authority from the board to sign it, because the signers are Mary, myself, and David on this.
I can't sign it unless the board directs me to sign it.
Yeah, the motion would be to authorize you to sign it.
That's our motion.
The other update is the library's treasurer was bonded today. So that's something that we've been waiting for, and that's finished.
I just want to make sure that's considered part of it, because there was some timeline in here, so we are acknowledging that the bonding has occurred and everybody's satisfied.
Yeah, the agreement, I think, states that he had to be bonded by November 9th, so if he's bonded now, then that's
Yeah,
not.
I just, Diane, thank you very much for your service there. But the email came today, I just want to make sure that everybody's acknowledging that the email is sufficient.
Yeah, in fact, the last revision deleted an affirmative statement that the library, the first whereas clause deleted the language "who has been bonded as required hereunder." I have no problem reinserting that because the bonding has occurred. So I would make a motion for the board to authorize David Williams to enter into this memorandum of understanding with the reinsertion of that language in the first whereas recital paragraph.
But just a point of order, you made a motion, the motion was seconded, so are you
I'm withdrawing my
your
motion.
earlier motion?
Yeah, thank you.
So as a seconder, I'll agree to that. You made a new motion, and I'll second the new motion.
Thank you.
This is a lawyer. Let a lawyer run amok. That's
I'll second your second motion.
That red line, that item right there.
Okay, any discussion up here? Discussion from the floor? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Terrific. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the special act regarding the removal of an elected financial officer. Nancy, can we ask you to walk us through what the amendment has been?
Well, this went to third reading in the legislature, and then the attorneys got a hold of it and started redlining. And I'm not an attorney, so I really can't give you a legal opinion on this, but I've gone through and I've looked, and most of it is changing language that makes it more legalese, changing things from may to shall. They've corrected things that are capitalized and shouldn't be, and things that should be that aren't. And they've required definitions of individuals or participants in the process. But they really, if I'm reading this right, they really haven't changed the original intent or even the process that was spelled out. And I see nothing that changes what was voted on at town meeting, and I don't know whether y'all, when you read through it, and this is a cleaned-up version that Linsky's office did from the markup, and I think you have copies of both.
So I agree. I think from my review of it, it seems like it's the same concept. I think there's still some typos in here, though. I know they've referred to us as the Board of Selectmen throughout instead of the Select Board.
Oh.
Would have to be changed.
And that's probably something I didn't call their attention to
So,
on that, because at the time we were
right.
Board of Selectmen. But you like that corrected?
Yeah, I think it has to be because we're the Select Board at this point. We're not the Board
Okay.
of Selectmen.
Okay, that should be simple, and this is coming out of his office. He's going to submit it as an amendment, and in your original language, when you submitted this, you stipulated that they could make changes as long as you all approved it, and it didn't change the general objectives of the petition that were accepted at town meeting. So he has an amendment.
So if I can put my, my town council hat on, for a minute. There is a significant issue. The amendment says that this is going to be governed by the open meeting law. And the open meeting law does not allow you to go into executive session to discuss professional competence. So there's a warning here that if your intent was to have this recall procedure done in executive session, you're not going to be able to do that. It's going to be in public session.
Okay, well, the way, that came to my mind as well. I think we have the option, the way this is written. We did say that we would notice the subject and so forth according to that, but we didn't specifically say that it would be an executive session. So if indeed we're talking about a health issue, then you do go into executive session. But if we're not, I assume we would not go into executive session. So, and I don't,
Correct.
and I think we have that option, the way this is written. I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but that's,
You do. It's just that if the intent of the original bill was to discuss things like incompetence, you cannot do that in executive session.
I understand that, but I think we have the option, whatever is put before us. If, for instance, we're removing someone because they've become ill, we would do that through executive session.
Yes.
If we have questions about their competency, then we would not use executive session, even though we would give people the opportunity to have representation, which is covered under the executive session. And we would notify them within 48 hours, the different things that are specified there, but it doesn't say that it has to be done in an executive session in the original or in the amendment.
Good. So if you're good with it, then I'm good with it.
I think I'm comfortable with it, but I was kind of looking for the legalese that's sitting at that table to give me a final, say that y'all are comfortable with the way it has turned out. I don't think it changes what we put in to begin with.
And the changes from should remove or ask for the keys back, should give a letter, making those mandatory, I think actually is probably a good idea.
And I felt that way, and also they took out some of the extra language that didn't, some of the redundancy that I had in there, so.
I mean, I've read through it, and it just seems like it's moving some definitions around. It didn't seem to change anything. Took, lines 49 there, whatever it was, when it defined a committee and actually defined it up front, seems to make sense to me.
So I move approval
With the change of the select.
with the change as requested by George of Select Board from Select Man to Select Board.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd also capitalize advisory committee and some of the caps, but that's obviously typos. I would second the motion. Any discussion up here? Discussion on the floor?
They don't capitalize words in these bills.
Oh, is that the,
Right.
I saw they changed a lot of the capitalizations to lowercase.
They did.
in here,
It's standard,
which was- I didn't realize.
that's interesting, because in a contract where it's a defined body, defined term, the tradition is to capitalize, so.
Right.
Well, they want all the bills to have the same style, and so they use lowercase.
Terrific, okay. Any questions from the floor? All in favor of the motion? Great.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, would I need a letter from you to Representative Linsky that you have approved it, or can I get a letter from you that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is consideration of special town meeting article request and warrant. David, is there anything specific?
No, we had one actual article request from the Recreation Commission that came in and then was withdrawn, so there's no requests.
What
We
was
don't-
that about?
It was about
Establishing a
changing
revolving
to, a revolving fund or enterprise fund.
changing their revolving fund to not have that limit of 10,000.
I think the main reason, and Brendan can correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you spoke to Dave Goldberg about this. Right now, they're limited to only 10,000 a year being able to roll over. So if they want to raise funds over a few years to do a larger project, they can't do it the way that they're structured right now. There's a law that doesn't allow recreation commissions to hold that much money. So they want to change it to a enterprise fund or a revolt, so they can then
Yeah.
continue to keep their money so they can do some larger projects. Is that? That's right.
That's right, and I think we talked about this 2 or 3 years ago when we were talking about the custody issue
Yeah.
over the revolving fund.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so they must have an account under 4453D, which says $10,000.
That's all
Right,
recreation
exactly.
commissions are.
And
Yeah.
so you want to go to an enterprise fund, which is a different statute. It's 4453F and a half.
But I think that can wait till the spring town meeting was
Right.
the thought on it.
Right.
Well, there's also another revolving fund that doesn't have that $10,000.
Yeah, it's not the
This is specific
enterprise
to
fund.
recreation
Okay.
commissions. From when we had this discussion when I was on advisory, all recreation commissions are limited to this 10,000.
If we opt for that statute, but we can opt for a
We can
different
opt out of
statute.
it, that's
Yeah,
exactly it.
Yeah. Changing the bylaws.
You turn back 180 grand, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
How much, Jeff?
It was 108,
Don't quote the number, but it's neighborhood of $180,000.
Right.
They proposed to turn back. The originally planned was they wanted to put lights on Laurel Farm, so they accumulated funds for either lights, possibly artificial turf for Laurel Farm. So because we became aware of this regulation, we can roll it over. We've been doing that, I think, perhaps incorrectly, and we caused that to change.
but then we put it into a fund, we didn't end up
Exactly.
turning it back. They turned it back and then we immediately put it into.
Gave it.
An article,
An
yeah.
article.
Yeah,
With the
Right.
sunset.
Right, exactly.
with the
Right.
sunset of
Right,
2020.
same time, you've got it coming in and out.
Well, further on this agenda item, I'm having some second thoughts about having a special town meeting, and at some point want to have a discussion with the board on that subject.
Yeah, I think we should have that discussion at our next meeting because of the timing.
Yeah, we'll add that.
So, please add that to the next agenda.
Possible to discuss it tonight, or you have it on the agenda?
Not until
The
to
issue
count
From our perspective is, first of all, I believe
counts.
the public hearing, which is your meeting and our advisory meeting is the 14th of November. I believe, and Diane or David can help me here, I think materials for the public meeting, which is to go over the library project, have to go out early next week. So
Yeah.
the second thing is, I structured it, originally, we were just gonna have the library people present on the 14th. I said, no, typically they come to advisory before the public hearing, so that's not the first time we hear it. So we're meeting this following Wednesday night with the library to go through the library project advisory list. So we have that this week, and like I said, it's exactly 1 week later is the public hearing, and I think we have to start going, at least going to the printers early next week and mailing maybe midweek. So that's why I'm saying I think we need to decide sooner rather than later.
One thing, we do have an executive session to discuss the library, so and we can return to public session after that. Because I
Yeah.
think we want to talk to town council before.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some legal issues that have come
Yes.
up that has caused me to rethink the whole issue of going to town meeting, and
I agree with that.
Want to have a
There are
chance-
issues, and so I just wanted you to know that
Mhm.
Tiny does some other.
But I think maybe, Chuck, if we could consider coming back tonight after the executive
The
session.
one concern I've got is this is an important issue, and I want Mike Giamo, who cannot be here tonight, to be able to weigh in. So I think we may need to schedule a special meeting perhaps early next week, maybe Monday or Tuesday morning, because I would like Mike to be able to weigh in on this.
it's too late to schedule a meeting for Monday morning. You have to give 48 hours notice and so on. This is Thursday night.
Yeah.
So Tuesday morning would be the earliest.
Really
It
hard for me.
depends on what time you're gonna have it. I would have to post the meeting, like, first thing tomorrow morning, or I could do it tonight. If you decide on Tuesday morning.
Terrific. Well, I-
And we don't know if Mike's, she's got a good point.
Right.
We don't know Mike's availability. I'm looking
Right.
at my morning availability is.
And also, it's a decision we need to make after we've had the discussion with town council and executive
Let's
session.
return to, let's do it after executive, let's talk about
Right.
it further after executive session.
Yeah, I plan for the motion to leave the possibility of returning to open session. Yeah. So,
And now remind
Sorry
me,
to
when does
catch
the warrant
everybody
officially
by
close?
surprise.
it's on the,
Here.
this agenda. What was it back here? The warrant was closed on the 31st.
Okay.
The warrant's closed, right? We closed it on the 31st?
Yes.
Right.
And so there's no other article. So we just have that one article.
Right.
That's another reason why not to have a town meeting. Only got one limited issue.
Yeah, and I'm glad the rec committee is, I think that warrant article doesn't merit a special town meeting, so I'm glad that they've agreed to put it, to schedule it on the regular annual town meeting. Thank you. Okay, routine business, town administrator report?
The Commodore from the Yacht Club was in a couple of meetings ago requesting to rent or lease a spot in. I don't think it's on either way. No, but thank you. To request a spot at the Farm Pond Reservation, and the way to go with that, or council looked at it, and the way to go with that is with a renewable and revocable long-term license. And then, so council is working on the draft to work from, and then it'll come back to the board, and the board can add their conditions into it, and then we can send it over to the yacht club.
Yeah, we need to confirm with the yacht club that they're comfortable with that. My understanding is that they are, but let's get that confirmed,
Yep.
just from the chair, but from the whole committee.
Or his wife.
No, I think he's feeling very positive, and they have a board meeting, and we can discuss the reason. The whole board is supportive.
It is the easiest route, is the
Okay.
license, yeah.
Good.
That's it.
Anything else, David? We got an update, I just have a brief one, we got an update on the General Chemical site. There really has not been any major change. The AG's office is looking at going after responsible parties. They really had no substantive update, so it continues to be a costly cleanup that is very poorly funded, so. Any other
I have one other.
selectmen reports? Yeah.
I got asked to a meeting with Peter Galatano from Advisory and Steve Leahy of the regional schools with a representative from the Dover Selectmen and Dover Warrant to talk about healthcare. I know they were telling that the town of Dover committed to West Suburban for 3 years again last year, but the regional school is with West Suburban on a year-to-year basis. Right, Peter, that's kind of what I gathered from that meeting. So they were asking because we switched to Maya, and I think that we're in the 3rd year of our 3-year deal with them, what, if we were considering looking at anything else this year, because they had significant savings with West Suburban, because they added a high deductible plan, which a number of the teachers moved over to, and they had significant savings at the region this year, once West Suburban had moved some stuff around. So, I don't know, Sharon or David, like, have we talked about looking into health insurance options this year, or?
We had, we've noticed by the Insurance Advisory Committee that we are looking into different options. We've met with the consultant who started doing the same analysis that they did last time, so that the unions will be able to have a good comparator. And then there's a select number of members from advisory that will be working with us when the analysis comes back. And then we're also working with another consultant at no cost for looking at other high deductible plans, see what options are there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there anything we need to do?
No, I just wanted to get some feedback from them to see, I mean, I know that the school is gonna look every year, and I wanted to make sure that we were also looking at it since our 3-year deal is up at the end of this year.
Just a little more background for everyone in attendance. This was a continuation of last year's conversation with the Dover Warrant Committee, Regional School Committee, and the advisory board on what the strategy for healthcare was. You couldn't do anything in the short term, but this is the results in the longer term of seeing what each party, the town of Dover, the town of Sherborn, Regional School Committee, can do with healthcare and move towards plans, attractive plans for members to save money and take advantage of some savings accounts available, which is numerous within regional schools. I don't think we have it at Sherborn, but it's good to evaluate all options. And if we can come together and join the critical mass of members under one plan, we may benefit in the future from that. So it's been the second year of this ongoing, maybe even more than that, but the second year of that.
And the reason that we benefit from MIAA was because they have more total. Because you see, the way they get discounts is they go to the doctors, and the doctors say, how many patients are you trying to go, how many patients are you to steer our way? So if you don't have a lot of plan sponsors with a lot of patients, you can't get a good discount to doctors. So West Suburban had fewer total patients, so they couldn't negotiate as favorable rates for providers. So that's why they were more expensive. So we could, while West Suburban may have a high deductible plan, or a plan with some HSA accounts, we could maybe get the same kind of plan from MIA and
Yeah.
benefit from, and get benefit. And I know you've been sending some material.
Yeah, I have.
And benefit from their greater total number of medical members in that MIA plan.
Yeah, they said, I think they said they have 127 municipalities and schools
Yeah,
combined, so it's a large number
yeah.
of members, so.
Great. Glad to hear that you guys are working on it. so-
Yeah.
Very important issue, my goodness. Yes?
Before you guys go into executive session, I just wanted to double check if you are gonna have a meeting Tuesday morning, really early, if you have an idea of what time it might be, I could book it tonight, and then you could cancel it. Because if you're gonna have like a 7:30 meeting tomorrow, I mean, on Tuesday, I would have to book it before 7:30 tomorrow morning.
I can't do anything before 8 a.m. I have to put my kids on the bus, so.
This is,
I have early voting
This is,
tomorrow. I'm alone in the office, so it's gonna be really crazy setting up for early voting. So if you think you're doing it very early Tuesday morning, I'd like to have an idea so I could book something tonight, and then you can cancel it if you need to.
I don't want to do it Tuesday morning because that's election day, all day.
Yeah, you're right. You're
And
right.
so
That's Tuesday morning.
presumably these rooms are going to be filled with voters coming in and
You're
out.
right. You wouldn't be able to have a meeting Tuesday morning, or it's not recommended.
We'll certainly let you know if that's,
Okay.
as soon as we really need to have this discussion.
Okay, well, actually Tuesdays, you're right, not a great day.
Right.
Because it's election day. Right, I forgot about that.
How could you?
Okay.
You can see how it can slip your mind. It's not.
All right. Okay, so if it's Wednesday or later, that's fine.
Yeah, and what does everyone's schedule look like for Wednesday morning or Wednesday evening?
Not Wednesday evening, but Wednesday morning, yes.
Wednesday evening is advisors meeting about the library, right?
Wednesday they have their meeting Wednesday night. We
Right.
could
Yeah.
join in
7th.
with them, and, I mean, if we, or do a separate meeting, I mean. Right, exactly, they wouldn't have,
Right.
need to have the meeting, right,
So
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to push to do it tonight. I understand.
before they have their meeting, right?
You don't have Mike here, I realize, but,
We still do have, I mean, I know it's, you'd prefer to have the whole board, but we do have a quorum.
Yep.
I have a 9 a.m. meeting Wednesday morning.
Terrific. Well, why don't we reconvene after the executive session? We'll reconvene and let everyone know what the schedule plan is, or if we've made the decision with the 4 members that are present.
do we know when we have to mail it? Diane, do you know, like, we have to mail, if we're having an advisory public hearing on the 14th, don't we have to notify residents with a?
I would have to get the way the events fall. I don't have it with me tonight.
Maybe we could do that.
can grab it.
Executive session too, but I think
Do you have a copy of it?
I can go grab it, yeah.
Printer on Tuesday. It has to go out, I forget how many, is it 4 days in advance, I forget.
I think for a special town meeting, it's a little shorter, but it's, yeah, I think it does have to
It
be,
has to go out Thursday for the following Wednesday, so.
yeah.
If you didn't meet till Wednesday, we would have.
It's already
Still
gone.
not mail it, but
Right.
we would have already printed it.
Yep. Okay, well, let's move into executive session to discuss with town council the status of the litigation. Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, subsection 3 is the relevant provision. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss strategy with respect to threatened potential litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town, and the chair so declares. Regarding the library, I do so declare. The select board may convene back to public session. I need a second and a roll call vote. The motion is seconded by select board meeting member Durensis. I now need a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Morrell?
Aye.
Mr. Yan, aye. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
So by a vote of 4-0 at 7:45, the open session is closed, and we are now in executive session.
And town council's here.
Terrific. Are we all set? Oh, we're on, okay, great. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We have, the board has come out of executive session and has returned, we reconvened in public session. I would ask Tom McEnany and Darren Klein, Town Council with KP Law, to summarize an opinion that they have provided to the town and the select board specifically about the special town meeting that we had scheduled for November.
December.
Excuse me, for
December 11th.
For December 11th, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board had asked us for an opinion whether or not a town meeting vote was required to increase the borrowing with respect to the library project. And as you know, the board was considering holding a special town meeting to include a warrant article to do so. We've reviewed the April 28, 2015 annual town meeting vote and motion. And at that town meeting approved a library borrowing in the amount of $7,479,436. The motion, which was approved unanimously by town meeting, included 3 specific contingencies, all of which have been met. Number 1, the town would receive a grant from the state Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which has occurred. The library would deliver at least $2,845,833 in private donations, which I understand has also occurred. And a debt exclusion vote would be approved, which did pass. There was no provision specifically in the motion that the amount to be borrowed by the town would be reduced by the grant or by any donations that were received. Therefore, in our opinion, from a legal standpoint, the entire $7,479,436 is available to be borrowed for project costs. We also confirmed that with bond counsel, who concurred with this opinion.
Terrific. And Darren, you've reviewed and agree with this opinion?
Darren Klein, through the chair. I've reviewed it. I've reviewed, Tom and I have worked together on this, and I've also reviewed Rick Manley's bond counsel's opinion. And I think all 3 of us agree that there is not a vote necessary at any town meeting to to borrow additional monies, that in fact legally it has already been authorized, not only by town meeting, but then again by a debt exclusion vote. And I think both town council, Tom and myself, as well as bond council, all are of the opinion that a town meeting would not be necessary. It would essentially be counterproductive on this issue.
Terrific. Questions up here about the opinion? One of the things I think is critical is that we provide the town with an update on the status of the project. I think it would be a good idea to use that date as an opportunity to discuss where the project is. Like many public building projects, this has had a number of issues. And I think it's important for us to update the town on where it is.
Absolutely.
And that should be done by the select board and the library trustees as well.
So can I make a motion?
Certainly.
So I move that upon advice of bond counsel and town council, that the town not to proceed with a special town meeting on December 11, 2018, and instead substitute, therefore, on December 11th, a public forum to hear a report from the library trustees regarding the status of the library project and to address questions from the public.
Second.
Discussion up here? And any discussion in the audience? Terrific. All those in favor of the motion? Note that Mike Giammo was not able to be here tonight, so I think at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we should provide him an opportunity to weigh in on his view on this. I mean, the motion obviously passes unanimously by a 4-0 vote. Any other additions, discussions?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Terrific. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Darren.